see you. Thank you. Thank you. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Wow, look at this crowd. Pretty unbelievable, huh? Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here today. This is an incredible day for West Virginia. I want to first of all thank everyone who came here today. This is something we've all been working on for a very long time. I'm really happy to be joined by Riley Gaines. We have Heather Higgins. I know also the First Lady, Denise, is around. Where's Denise? She's back there. Thank you. I see we have, there are too many legislators to note, but I do see that our good Attorney General, who's inheriting a lot of the great work we've done to protect women, J.B. McCuskey. And I'm not going to mention the countless legislators who are here, but I'm very grateful for all of you for what you're doing because it's so marvelous. But today I want to start by highlighting two local athletes. One of them, unfortunately, can't be here today. That's Emmy Salerno. And you may remember during my State of the State, I talked a little bit about Emmy. Emmy and her teammates from Harrison County were forced to compete against a male in track and field. Emmy bravely took a stand and refused to participate. We are grateful for Emmy's courage, and we wish she could be here. As Attorney General, I was proud to support Amy and all the young women in West Virginia in our quest to make sure that women have wonderful, positive environments around them, and they get to benefit from the sports opportunity, the leadership opportunities that come, and that we've had, especially since Title IX took root in 1972. As AG, I worked on this issue for a very long time. And even right now, we have multiple cases up at the U.S. Supreme Court. And I'm going to tell you, I think we're going to win those cases. What do you think? But it all comes down to the athletes. Thank you, Emmy, for what you've done. The other athlete who was here, Adalea Cross, also from Harrison County. Where's Adalea? Thank you. Adalea was forced to share a locker room with a male, all the while being targeted for crude and explicit comments. Adalea was rightfully very uncomfortable sharing private spaces and changing in front of this individual. When she raised concerns with coaches and school officials, she didn't hear back. So what did Adalea do? Adalea took on the Biden administration's unlawful changes to Title IX laws. Now, as Attorney General, I also was part of a coalition suing that Biden administration after they made the changes that stripped rights away from females. Adalea, thank you for being here with us. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your voice. We couldn't come this far as well unless we had partners from across the board. We have the Independent Women's Forum that's done so much good work. We have Alliance Defending Freedom. Thank you all for all the great work you've done. So today, we're here to celebrate a really big issue, and I think it's long overdue. Now, last month, I had a chance to join President Trump at the White House for the signing of his executive order to keep men out of women's sports. You might have seen that on TV with the Maine governor. It was pretty interesting. Always entertaining to be at the White House. But one thing I could say is that West Virginia is going to be a strong ally to President Trump, and we're going to support every effort of his to protect women's sports and women's spaces. You know, this is an issue that is universal support, nearly universal support, yet the woke left, they always dig in their heels and they try to force the rest of the country to adhere to the radical gender ideology. Well, that's not going to happen here. That's not going to happen in West Virginia. I said in my State of the State speech that West Virginia was going to lead with common sense. And that's exactly what we're here to do today. It's common sense that there are two sexes. It's common sense that boys should not be competing with girls in sports. It's common sense that women's spaces, like bathrooms, locker rooms, domestic violence shelters, and rape crisis centers should be kept private for women only. That's why today I am proud to sign into law the Riley Gaines Act. The bill that I have before me defines terms like sex, male, female in the state code to allow for single-sex private spaces. The bill is critical for girls and women in our state, ensuring bathrooms and locker rooms are based on biological sex and providing separate shelters for rape and domestic violence victims. That's important. And I'm very happy to say we're joined today by Riley Gaines, who's been at the forefront of this issue since she was a college athlete at the University of Kentucky. I don't know of another woman in America who's done more to explain the importance of this issue than Riley Gaines. She's been amazing. And she's partnered with the Independent Women's Forum, a group dedicated to developing and advancing policies that are more than just well-intentioned, but actually enhance people's freedom, opportunities, and well-being. We're also proud that Heather Higgins, the chair of the Independent Women's Forum, is here today, and she's going to have a few remarks in a moment. Riley has worked tirelessly. She's got an incredible work ethic, and she's traveled across the country to defend women's sports and fight for women to have their right to private spaces. I'm so thankful that I've had a chance, Riley, to work with you as Attorney General and now as Governor of West Virginia. And now as Governor, I'm particularly honored to name this piece of legislation after her. I also want to thank the West Virginia Legislature for working with me to get this bill passed, especially to Senate President Randy Smith, Speaker Roger Hanshaw. We have Amy Grady, we have Kathy S. Krause and Patricia Rucker, Delegate Mazzocchi. There's so many people. I see so many people from the legislature. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you. They were great. I'm going to tell you, to effectuate change on issues like this, it takes a team. You hear me a lot talk about Team West Virginia. The governor alone can't do all this. Attorney General alone can't do all this. It takes a team. It takes a lot of the brave young and women who are here today. It takes these amazing groups that are stepping forward to fight, especially when it was not popular to do that. You know, I remember back in 2016 when there were protests down in North Carolina. Remember when the NCAA, they were all threatening boycotts? How the world has changed. And that's a great thing. It takes these legislators, everyone coming together. So, I can't say enough good things about what everyone's done, but I do start with Riley and her courage to stand up for women. Now, I'd like to give Riley the floor to tell her story and speak about how this new law is going to make a difference in West Virginia and what it does for the country. Ladies and gentlemen, Riley Gaines.
Thank you. Wow. You guys are so sweet. Goodness gracious, well, thank you. I hope you feel, especially you Moms for Liberty gals, at least a little bit silly for giving someone a standing ovation for merely saying men and women are different. I don't know. It's kind of the whole shtick. Look, I'm so honored to be here. What we are doing today, I know the legislators in the room know this. I know Governor Morrisey knows this. It's really long overdue. This is something that we have been fighting for in the state of West Virginia for many legislative sessions now. So this is, foundational. It's paramount. It's really a full circle moment for me. And to have the bill named after me is just the biggest honor in my life, really. So thank you, Governor Morrisey. Thank you, legislators, the sponsors, co-sponsors of this bill, these amazing women who are up here today. But most importantly, I want to give a shout out to Emmy, too. Emmy, the brave, she was 13, maybe 14 years old at the time when she was set to compete against a man in their middle school state championship for track and field, specifically in the event of shot put. But Emmy and 4 of her teammates, so 5 young girls, had more of a backbone than any man, any coach, any official, anyone else who was supposed to be protecting them. And they decided to boycott this event. Emphasis on the word boy there. And they chose not to participate. But again, that's the type of moral courage that inspires me. It's seeing all of you young girls here today. This is so revitalizing. Maybe the objective is, of course, for this to inspire you all, but I think I speak for all of us up here that it's this that inspires us. So thank you. As mentioned, my name is Riley Gaines. I am here today as a former collegiate athlete, but now an advocate for women standing firmly against the erasure of women. By now, many of you are probably familiar with my story. I was a member of the University of Kentucky women's swim team, where I very proudly finished my career as a 12-time NCAA All-American, 5-time SEC champion, actually the SEC record holder in the 200 butterfly, making me one of the fastest Americans of all time, 2-time Olympic trial qualifier, SEC Scholar Athlete of the Year, SEC Community Service Leader of the Year. The list goes on, but again, just to really highlight, it's a lifelong journey to compete and to succeed at the highest level. I'm not going to waste your time with the specifics of how I found myself here. Truthfully, I could talk about it for hours. I could share with you, of course, the unfairness. Standing on the block at your national championships, the pinnacle of your sport, looking over at the lane next to you and seeing a man standing 8-9 inches taller than me, visible Adam's apple from his side profile, his feet size 15 taking up the entire diving block. I could share with you the feelings of utter violation and betrayal and humiliation of what that locker room scene felt like. Again, as 18, 19, 20-year-old girls undressing down to nothing next to a 6'4" man who was fully intact, fully exposing himself. I could share with you about the efforts to silence us that we saw from our universities, from our administrations, how they did everything in their power to effectively muzzle us. And I say effectively because, again, it worked, telling us that we would be akin to white supremacists or racists if we advocated for segregation, because that's what they did to African Americans in the 1960s. And you don't want to be seen as, on the same side of history as the KKK, do you? They told us we would be equivalent to murderers if we spoke up about this issue, because we would have blood on our hands, and they would follow it up with, and you don't want to be a murderer, do you? No, so I suggest you be kind. And I suggest you be inclusive. The only way you can really describe that is emotional blackmail. I could talk about that for hours, but today we are here to celebrate a big win for the state of West Virginia, but broader, a win that will transcend into all of the other states in this nation. Not so long ago, a decision by a university to allow such discriminatory and regressive behavior would have been understood as an obvious violation of Title IX, the 1972 federal civil rights law that at one point prevented sex-based discrimination within any educational program that received federal funding, including, of course, collegiate athletics. But after 4 years of the Biden administration, Unelected bureaucrats have figured out they can go through the back door and reinterpret these words to mean what they want them to mean. Words, of course, like woman, words like sex, equating that with gender identity, saying these words are synonymous, they mean the same thing. Under this rewording, of course, colleges and universities were required to allow anyone who identified as something other than they're not, of course, a man who identifies as a woman, to compete in women's sports, to undress in women's changing spaces. This is literally the opposite of what Title IX was enacted to do, coming up on 53 years ago. Unfortunately, the intrusion of men in women's spaces has already gone so much further than just sports, as Governor Morrisey mentioned. Just imagine for a second if all spaces were co-ed. Again, co-ed prisons, where women are at a substantially greater risk of abuse, co-ed shelters and rape crisis centers, co-ed locker rooms where minor girls would be changing and undressing with adult men. It's hard to imagine, right? But yet it's not, because we are living it. Every single day, I personally learn of new women, girls, who have fallen victim to the extreme agenda to erase women. It has gone too far. Did you see Governor Evers just a few weeks ago in the state of Wisconsin in a 1,000-page budget bill, which I know the legislators in this room know how that goes, attempted to change state statute, the word mother, to inseminated persons. We've been called a lot. Cervix havers, uterus owners, menstruators, bleeders, chest feeders, birthing persons, but inseminated persons really takes the cake for me. The first question that popped into my mind, I stopped reading immediately when I saw this red line change, and I thought to myself, okay, well, what are they going to call father? The counterpart would be inseminator, I guess. But that's not what they changed father to. They changed father to natural parent. Now tell me there's not a war on women. Then, of course, the next thought that came into my mind is, oh gosh, what are they calling grandmothers? Grand inseminated persons. What do they think about, what does Governor Evers think about stepmothers? No, to Governor Evers, you're not a mom. Oh, adopted mothers. No, again, that doesn't qualify as being a mother to Governor Evers. So again, all of that to prove the point, there is still, even with Donald Trump in the White House, back in the Oval Office, there is still a war on women. But thankfully, you guys are fortunate to have a governor who has taken the decisive and swift action that he has. So you no longer have to imagine a society where sex-based rights don't exist. You're a fighter, Governor Morrisey. You have been since, the inception of this issue, since many of us began to learn about these things happening. Of course, you've become a dear friend of mine. Your wonderful wife, Denise. I got to spend time with your dog today, which was the best part of my day as well.
He's a good boy.
I've watched Governor Morrisey stand up and fight for women and girls on and off the field. He stood up for truth. He stood up for biological reality far before it was popular. He had a backbone before having a backbone was cool, but it's become a cornerstone of his leadership legacy. It really has. And so as Attorney General, again, as gubernatorial candidate, and now as governor, he made a promise to West Virginia that his state would define woman, the word woman, and protect women's hard-earned spaces and opportunities. And today he makes good on that promise. Not something we see often from politicians, even with politicians with an R by their name. But thanks to Governor Morrisey, and again, the West Virginia prioritization of a bill that defines sex and preserves women's spaces, nearly 1 million West Virginian women and girls will not be subjected to embarrassing and sometimes, oftentimes, even dangerous experiences in their private spaces. And equally as important, his signature defines common sex-based words like woman and man. Now when these words are used in West Virginia in their state statute, they mean something. So everyone is speaking a common language that is no longer up for reinterpretation. Governor Morrisey's leadership is an example for his colleagues in all other states to follow. Rather than sitting idly by, he took the horrible and severe and ongoing assault on women seriously, stood up, and he took action to define sex-based words and protect women's privacy and opportunities. So thank you again, Governor, for everything that you have done for leading the way in this fight for women's equality, for women's privacy, for women's respect, safety, and opportunities. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's great. Well, thank you very much, Raul. And I will say with the legislature here, you're not going to send me a bill with inseminated person, are you? That's not happening in West Virginia, I don't think, right? Well, thank you so much. And I'm now going to introduce Heather. She's done some amazing things. But before I do, I want to also give a shout out to all those in the background, all the staff that worked tirelessly, the legislative council who worked hard, the governor's office staff. I mean, people are working really hard for any one bill to be drafted right, especially in this area. We try to draft to make sure we're going to win in the court of law, right? We take our time. And so many people put time. And so I am deeply grateful for those in the governor's office, the administration, and also all the staff that don't get credit upstairs. Thank you for all of your good work. And I'd like to now turn it over to you, Heather, for all the amazing things that you've done. You've been a real leader nationally. Thank you.
For context, I'm Heather Higgins. I chair Independent Women's Forum, and I run their advocacy arm, Independent Women's Voice. I wanted to start first by thanking Governor Morrisey and all of you wonderful legislators for ensuring that West Virginia is a state where women of West Virginia and its girls know that the definition of sex is intelligible and intelligent, and that those spaces which are for women and girls, and often vulnerable spaces, are protected and secure. We're talking about prisons, rape crisis centers, locker rooms, etc. We're here, some of you may be wondering, this is so obvious, why do we have to be here? We're here because we're reacting to years of deceit, which has been really rolling along and growing. A deceit based on the conflating of two words, sex and gender. Words that in common parlance are often used as synonyms, but they're not synonyms. They mean very different things, at least they should. Sex means your biological reality, whereas gender is a term that comes from grammar, and it refers to characteristics and verbs like masculine and feminine. In 2001, independent women realized that this was a growing problem and that women's rights and spaces and opportunities were being taken away by this verbal sleight of hand. And so we drafted, in its first incarnation, it was called the Women's Bill of Rights, model legislation that would define what male and female were in a way that would legally stand up before any court and help provide legislative guidance. It would protect spaces, and very importantly, it would also protect data collection. Because if you think about it, whether it's statistics on health or education or crime, anything that's a sex-based statistic gets very messed up if you start conflating who actually is in what category. President Trump had an executive order that he signed his very first day in office, which was based on that legislation. He said there were only two genders. We tried for 2 days to get him to say there were only two sexes, but when you come from this culture where sex always kind of implies a verb, it's not very nice and polite society to use the word sex if you're of a certain age. But the language of the executive order is very clear that what we're talking about is only two sexes. And that is important. Why? Well, as Jordan Peterson said to me, it is the greatest of all the lies that the left tells, because it undermines reality, it undermines truth, and if you can get people to believe that there is no reality and there is no truth, then you can get them to believe anything. And so what you have done is helped reestablish reality and truth, and we thank you for it. I'm standing in a room full of politicians, so this is probably a naughty thing to say, but most Americans don't really expect politicians to keep their word and do the right thing. But as the CEO of Independent Women, I want to tell you that Governor Morrisey really is, and I can attest to this personally, a conviction politician who did things when they were not yet popular, standing up for women and what was right. That started, we first got to know you when you were Attorney General. And we had this model legislation, and you signed on to it because you understood how important it was to prevent judges and bureaucrats from redefining words to mean things that they didn't mean and take away women's rights and opportunities by twisted meanings. You have been a steadfast champion, standing with female athletes like Riley and Emmy and Adalea. Am I pronouncing that right? Congratulations to you. We really appreciate it. Who were being robbed of their opportunities. And now, as governor, you are creating a law that will protect all the girls and women of West Virginia. Your signature will deliver this promise. And it's a promise that you first signed as a candidate when you signed our Stand with Women commitment, which has as its language specifically that you would support legislation that preserves women's equal opportunity and single-sex spaces. In your State of the State address, you again reiterated that this was a priority, and now, less than a month later, we are here signing it today. I really want to thank the legislature for getting behind the governor. The governor cannot do it without you guys, and it is... And the governor is blessed to have you, because there are a lot of states where governors have been forced to sign executive orders because they can't get their legislators to stand up for the women of their states. And you have done that, and you are all to be congratulated and thanked for that. And Governor, we particularly appreciate your prioritizing this and signing it into law and being a conviction politician with high principles and following through on your promises. Thank you so much.
It makes it easy to work on these issues when you have so many wonderful people here, the young women who have been so brave. I thank you all for being here today. All of us in this room want to protect your safety, protect your future, and make sure that you have amazing leadership opportunities right here in the Mountain State. Now it's time to sign the law. You guys ready?
Here, Eden, you get up front. Up front. Get up front. Then you gotta go up front, girl.
Everyone behind? Everyone there?
Did the best I could.
Too many of us.
Yeah, come up front. Oh, we're scooting up? Yeah, scoot over, scoot over.
You guys are ready. Everyone behind?
Okay, come closer.
We're good. This is the first public signing ceremony since I became governor. It's an honor to be with all of you today. Thank you so much. Day, and I look forward to spending a lot of time with you. Our fight is not over. There are always going to be people who push back, but today marks an important milestone. So thank you all for coming. God bless.
Oh, I'm starting.